So that time from when you arrived in Australia up until maybe that point 5 years ago when you started this business,
Yeah.
what were you doing? How were you flowing?
Yes. Well, I was very open-minded because I just loved the country, knew I had to be here. And so I networked like a maniac
Did
to
you
get a
arrive in
visa.
Sydney?
I did. I decided on Sydney because that's actually where I went after the Queensland trip. I actually ended
Okay.
up coming to Sydney for a couple of days and loved it.
Yeah.
So I showed up. I stayed on a girlfriend's couch who I knew as one of the trainers for Tony Robbins. She let me stay on her couch for a couple of weeks. And in that process, a couple of things happened. I ended up just, Tony Robbins graduate who's a pilot for Qantas. He knew some other pilots that had a shared house in Coogee, a beach here in Sydney. And I moved in. I got a room. So I had a room in this house of hosties and pilots for Qantas who were barely ever there because they were all long haul. While I was doing that, I was networking and I had to find a visa. I had 3 months to do so because if you're an American, you need to get the hell out of the country.
You really do. You really do. And you didn't want to overstay your visa and then not be allowed back in the country.
No,
Yep.
no. So I networked. I was looking for people that were willing to hire me. And every step of the way, I was so, I knew what I wanted that I just didn't hear anything else. I didn't hear that, oh, it's so hard. How are you going to do it? Or, oh my gosh, are you serious? I'm not going to give you a visa. That would cost my money so much money, or my company so much money.
Yep.
So after you go to New Zealand, I came back because I had to get a new visa. And I met somebody that was willing to give me a go. And he said, you have to do all the paperwork and you have to spend the money to get the visa, but I'll let you work for the company.
Wow.
And it's a life coach training company. Well, when you're filing with, immigration, you basically say, yeah, well, I worked for the head life coach in the world, Tony Robbins, so they need my expertise. That's how I got the visa. But
Oh, wow.
that's where I first started. So I was basically the general manager for a life coaching training company for a year.
Incredible. Incredible.
And then after that, I moved on. The two directors ended up doing some dirty deals and they fled the country and they went off to the UK and I was left behind with their licensees and basically the company went under. From there, I started working with a promoter that was bringing out big name speakers, one of which was named Chris Howard from the States, and he was on the rise. And she had heard of my experience working with Tony Robbins and working with crew and building systems. So she brought me on as a consultant and eventually head crew director. And I built up all the crew processes for them. And look, when I first started, Chris was having events of 30 people in the room. By his height, he had 5,000.
Wow.
And so
Wow, that's astronomical.
it was amazing. It was a great ride. It was amazing. I did that for a while. I got bored after a couple of years. So then I pitched a business deal to him and his business backers, his investors and the promoters. And I said, why don't we start something for the next level of your seminar attendees? And I had always wanted my own club in Tony Robbins, my girlfriend Jan ran a club for Tony called Platinum Partnership, which is where they would travel around the world and do amazing sightseeing. So I wanted to take that one step further and create something where not only do you bring business owners together, but you also do social entrepreneurship while you're there in developing countries. So I pitched this idea. And Chris wanted it to be named the Billionaire Adventure Club. I thought, right, okay, whatever. In my mind, I thought it's kind of hokey, but if we could touch 1 billion lives, then that would sit well with me.
Yeah.
So Billionaire Adventure Club was born. I hired somebody to take my role as crew director, which is now my current business partner, Andrew. He's took over my role. And then I was doing the Billionaire Adventure Club for a while. Amongst other things, I was bringing out a female speaker to do a book launch in Australia because I can never sit still. So I was doing still a lot of things.
That's incredible. I love that you said I got bored and so I did something else, because so many of us, well, on our journey, whether it's as an entrepreneur or anything, life really is about change. And I find with my clients and my students, a lot of our, I guess, perceived suffering is the constant, and this is a Buddhist philosophy as well, is that we have the constant desire for things to be different, and they often need to be different. But if we accept things as they are and then take action to make the changes we want in our lives, that's how we keep growing, I believe. So I'm really inspired by the fact that you said, my time here is done, and you were really clear about your truth and then moved on.
Yeah, that's good perspective, actually.